as I see it. Part 1, how they see it.
When you say you get lost, what do you mean?
All of the above. I've lost my bearings. I don't know where I'm at. Like, for instance, like with the story of me getting lost in my home.
You got lost in your home.
I get lost in my home a lot. And it's probably like 1 or 2 times a week at this point in time. Which you think I would learn my house, which I do know it. But when you walk in my front door, it's kind of like a little hallway that you go down that heads into the kitchen and the living room, but there's a side hallway to the left that goes to the bedrooms. And then there's another little part that has like a little wall in between that breaks off. Somehow or another, I end up on the wrong side of the wall that breaks in between the hallway. And I'm just like lost there. Like, where am I?
When my husband and I first got married, and I knew that he liked meatloaf, and I said, I'm gonna make a meatloaf, homemade. So I got all my ingredients out, and back in those days, we as blind people who couldn't see boxes and read things, we did not have the ability to identify things in boxes and packages. So I put my meatloaf together, and I prepared it and sat down to eat it. And my husband takes a bite of meatloaf, and I said, well, how is the meatloaf? And he said, well, it's very good, except that I have never had a meatloaf with nuts and raisins in it. And I started laughing because I knew right away that what I had done, I had grabbed, instead of oatmeal or whatever it was I meant to put in there to bind it, I had grabbed a box of mueslis. So it did bind it, but there were raisins and dates and nuts, all kinds of things in that meatloaf.
When you're blind, I think many blind people share this experience of apologizing to random objects or talking to random objects. So, if you think about when you're walking, maybe you mistake a plant or a signpost or a lamp for a person. It happens all the time. Because you don't know, you just sense there's something there. Yeah, you're just aware that there's an object, and maybe you think it's somebody. So the next thing you know, you're talking to it, wondering why it's not responding. Funny / embarrassing. A lot of people in gyms work out with headphones in, so think of things like AirPods. I have sat in people's laps before when trying to use equipment. So you go up to a machine, maybe you kind of tap the machine with your cane to see if someone's there. But if it's noisy, there's music from ahead, there's speakers playing, someone's got AirPods in. So next thing I know, I'm sitting in someone's lap. That's hilarious.
I was speaking at a conference at Duke. It was a disability-related conference some years ago. It was prior to COVID. And I got dressed that morning. I put on a pair of jeans, nice jeans, and a white button-down dress shirt. And I was on a panel with a couple of other folks, and the audience had a number of people who were blind in the audience. So we were asked to describe ourselves. And my 2 other panelists described themselves, and I described myself. I'm a white male. I have gray hair around the sides. I have blue eyes. I'm wearing a pair of blue jeans and a white button-down dress shirt. And then we went on and talked for an hour. And when I left the conference, I walked outside, using my cane at the time. My wife and daughter were sitting at the curb in the car, and my daughter rolled down the window and yelled, "Dad, do you know you're wearing your purple shirt today?" And I just thought, I just told an audience of 100 people that I was wearing a white shirt, and nobody said anything to me. Just gotta laugh at stuff like that, and you just move on from it. But stuff like that happens.
So before you go too far, can you explain what you can or cannot see?
I can't see anything. Everything is black for me.
Your entire life?
No, honestly, I lost my vision in 2018. I was 28 years old when I lost it. So, and just to tell you how I lost it, you know how the old grandmamas used to tell you, the sugars is going to make you go blind. I didn't listen.
Diabetes.
So, yeah, I have diabetic retinopathy. And in 2017, I started getting these little floaters in my eyes. 2018, April 2018, everything was black. I had surgery in January. I could still see a little in my left eye. By March, my left eye was kind of like getting to the point where it's like, okay, something's happening. But April, everything was completely black.
I love Durham. This town has just got lifeblood. You know, it's got feeling in it. And there's no better place to have a brain tumor, which is where my blindness comes from. If you want to have a brain tumor, have it in Durham. We walked in, my mom and I sat down in this dark room, and he said, "That's your brain." And it was a whole wall that was my brain. And I was like, okay. And he said, "You have the largest meningioma I've ever seen in a living person." I can't remember what it's called, but they took the craniotomy.
Okay.
They did that and kept getting better. And then I got hit with epilepsy. And so now I have grand mal seizures. And that the biggest hit of that was back in September on the 23rd. And I had 4 grand mals and several seizures an hour and that all happened in like 24 hours. And I was hospitalized for a while. And my vision went down some again.
I was born with cataracts, but I had good enough vision that my family did not realize that I had issues with my vision. One day, someone came to visit our home. It was another family member who had never seen me, and they said, "You need to get her eyes checked." And so back then, they were not as good at removing cataracts as they are now. And I had multiple surgeries on each one of my eyes. And obviously, they were not successful surgeries. I had some vision until I was in my early 20s. Not good vision, but enough vision that I could walk around and see the contrast with grass and sidewalk, that sort of thing. And then one day I was at work and I was going from one hospital to the other. And when I started out, it was a bright, sunny day. I could see that. And then when I got to the other side, I thought, what happened to the sun? Why is it so dark? And I made that comment to a colleague of mine, and she said, "Well, it's still sunny." And I knew what had happened, and it was just like, oh well.
Yeah, I have retinitis pigmentosa. That's what has caused me to lose my vision. And unlike a lot of people with RP, that's what they call it, that's what they refer to it as, I was diagnosed by Mrs. Moody. Mrs. Moody was, I remember her. She was the school nurse when I was in first grade in New York. And they brought, every year they would bring the, one by one, students would go into the nurse's office to get their vision checked and their hearing checked. And Mrs. Moody detected something was up with me, and it wasn't long after that that I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa. So I grew up with it. I'm 65 now, so it's been with me all my life. It's a hereditary condition that I learned very recently. I have an X-linked form of the disease, so it came from my mom. But it's another interesting thing about RP is there's no one in my family who's been affected by it. We've never known anyone to have RP, to be a carrier, and anything like that. It's just me. And I have friends who have RP, who have dozens of relatives who also have RP within their family tree. So it's just impacts people very differently. But yeah, I grew up with it. It's so, with RP, you lose your peripheral vision slowly over time, and then ultimately your central vision. And you're also carrying night blindness. So I've always had difficulty seeing in dim light and dark light, but like regular daylight light, that vision slowly degraded over the decades. And now I don't see things anymore. My world is variations of light and shadow, basically. I can, if I look directly at a window during daylight, I can tell there's probably a window there, but nothing in between. As I said, I don't see things. I don't really see silhouettes or anything like that. Just light and shadow. And there are variations of that. I mean, it could go on. Some days are different than other days in terms of what I see. And it's gotten to the point where it got to the point over a decade ago where I had lost that much vision that I couldn't navigate. I couldn't walk around safely without the assistance of a cane. I had a seeing eye dog up until very recently. I'll get another dog. But yeah, that's the nature of my vision at this point. It's light and shadow. Sometimes it's beautiful light and shadow. Sometimes it's bothersome light and shadow. Never painful though.
So I was born 27 weeks early. At 27 weeks. I was born at 6 months. I was 1 pound 9 ounces, born in 92. There was this jet ventilator that had just been developed the year before, or right at the cusp of 91, and it helped to infants breathe 100% for them who were premature. So I ended up being in the NICU and for about 5.5 months until I could fully develop. So I had a detached retina in my left eye when I was 7. I had a cataract in my right eye when I was 11. But before all that happened, I saw like looking through binoculars. So I didn't have peripheral vision, but I could see to read and write, play sports, play basketball, those kind of things. Over the years, my vision just got worse because of the scar tissue. So I went from seeing 2200 to 2400 to 28, from 2200 to 2400, I went to see 2800, and now to where I just see worse than that, which is maybe like 28,000, which is basically being the equivalent of seeing hand motions at 4 inches from your face, and I see lights and shadows. But before, as it progressed, I was able to see just fingers from 4 inches from my face. I can count them. Then before that, I could see a stop sign from 20 feet away where you could see it at 200 feet. And that's kind of how the trajectory of my vision has went over the years. It's stable. I'm not supposed to really go blind, but there could be the possibility as I get older. But right now, everything is stable. And I think for me, I struggle with severe night blindness. And severe night blindness is where when you go into a dark area, it just looks pitch black. You don't really see anything. It's hard to make out shapes and shadows and movement, all those things. So it's just like looking into a void, essentially. So that's pretty much that.
Now, my visual loss, I think it was over time because I have retina detachment, and I've actually worn glasses since I was in kindergarten. But as I got older, my vision seemed to get worse, and unfortunately, I was more concerned with my appearance, as far as I was told I need bifocals. I was concerned that I was determined not to wear thick glasses. So, but I really was not listening nor paying attention that my vision was getting worse. I began to had difficulty driving at night because I couldn't drive at night. It was extremely difficult with me seeing as well as other drivers, the lights from the other cars, the other vehicles. When I got here in Durham and went to the eye doctor, that's when they told me I was going blind. And at first it was only in my left eye, but I didn't want to do surgery. And so then eventually I lost vision in both eyes. But to me, I know it's from not giving it as much attention as I should have and staying on top of it.
I am, well, technically visually impaired, but I just say blind because it's easier. So I can see a little bit of shape, a little bit of shadow. I have what's called retinopathy of prematurity. So I was born with detached retinas. I've never gotten hallucinations, but I've definitely gotten lost all the time. And the best thing is when you're lost on your own block or your own street. Because if you will get off a bus or out of a car, you might be very close to your apartment or your door or your house, but there's this moment where you might be right there, but if you don't know where you are, you can't see, you could still be a million miles away from that place, even if you're 10 feet away. So I live in downtown where there's blocks, and the blocks all kind of feel the same. There's stores and buildings and signs and scooters everywhere. And I've definitely had the misfortune of being one block over or even the same street as where I live and just not knowing where I am. Because it all feels the same to me at first until I get my bearings.
So recently, this is about 6 months ago, I was on the greenway walking with my dog. And now the greenway only goes north and south. And I was going north. But for some reason, there was a cutoff on the greenway, and I stopped for a second to just tie my shoe or whatever, or let my dog use the bathroom. So that immediately got me a little confused, because then I was like, wait, was I going left or was I going right? And then ironically, there was a runner. He was running. He's like, and I was trying to ask for help, and he ran by. He said, I can't help. I can't stop. He was running. I was like, sir, I'm blind. I just needed your help. And so he finally came back and was like, oh, I'm sorry. And it made me feel like weird, because I'm like, you ran by me because you were running, and all I needed was you to help me, and I was disoriented for 2 seconds. And so eventually he helped me, but then I have an app called Ira, and I opened it, and they helped me get kind of back straight and give me the coordinates I needed to get back to my. And sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking and tense for the moment, because you feel like you're lost, but you're not really lost in theory. It's just that you had a momentary lapse in judgment as far as what I call like directionally challenged in that moment.
I was hiking with him on the Mountains to Sea Trail along the Eno River not long after I got home with him back in 2017. And got home with him from the Seeing Eye Guide Dog School. So I hadn't had him very long. And we're on this trail, and I knew the trail. And we were hanging out at this little waterfall spot about a mile from my house. And came time to head back on the trail, I got Gifford going off in that direction, and soon found that he must have taken a turn, because we weren't on the trail anymore. And I tried to backtrack, and I couldn't figure that out. but all I knew was, okay, I'm lost. I also hadn't been, to where I lived for very long. I've been here a couple of years at that time. But so I was lost with Gifford. And how did I get out of it? I listened, and I heard cars and just pointed him in the direction of the cars. There was we had come to like a power line break or a fire break in the woods, and we just kept walking to the direction of the cars and got to this road, and I just kind of it made sense to me that this has to be Infinity Road, and I knew where I was, and we wound up, there's no sidewalk or anything, so it was fairly fast, not a lot of cars, but they were moving pretty fast. So we had to navigate back along the sort of the verge of the road and ditches and stuff, and wound up making it back to my neighborhood that way. So we worked it out, and I guess that was sort of like Dog and I high-fived each other when we got home. But I've never gotten lost, where I couldn't get out of it. Other than that time, I never, away from home, I've never gotten lost. But let me talk about the Charles Bonnet syndrome, the visual hallucinations. I don't like that word. I like visualizations more than hallucinations. But back, 15 years ago, more than that maybe, I started seeing these flashing sort of objects and lights and dots in my field of vision. And I didn't know what it was, but it was making things really bothersome and difficult for me. At this moment, I'm experiencing that. Between you and I, there's this field of flashing, billions of little flashing lights, and they're there 8 days out of 10, and have been for that many years, somewhere between 15 and 20 years. I've kind of gotten used to it. They used to be really more of a torment. But when it started, I talked to my ophthalmologist with it, and he suggested to me, this is a doctor in Chico, California, that what I'm seeing is my brain just making up stuff. And he had nothing more to say about it. He didn't put a name to it. He just casually said, yeah, that's your brain working because you're losing your vision. And I remember seeing a specialist, a retina specialist at Stanford Eye Clinic in Palo Alto, California, around that time, and I talked to him about it. And he told me what I'm seeing are my rod and cone cells dying. It's a product of retinitis pigmentosa. And everything I've learned since then tells me that was completely wrong. And that the first guy who said it's my brain sort of making up stuff was much closer to the truth. So as the years went on, I started to see other things. And the first one was in my home in Durham, so it goes back like 9 or 10 years. And I was laying on my bedroom floor. I don't remember what I was doing, but I just stopped because I saw this face of a girl, and it was vivid. And it was just, I actually remember reaching out and like, what is that? And it just kind of was there. It wasn't frightening or anything. It was just a face of a young girl or a young woman, and then it was gone. And what the heck was that? And that phenomenon became more common, and it happens to this day. I see faces all the time now, almost on a daily basis. And in the meantime, I got involved with a support group back in 2017, and that the conversation came up. It's for me, it was largely a group of strangers at that point. I'd been new to the group, but one of the first meetings I went to, people were talking about these visualizations that they were experiencing, and I was like fascinated by it. And someone said there's this thing called Charles Bonnet syndrome that impacts not the majority by any means, but for people who are who have lost a significant amount of vision, people report seeing visualizations of really a great variety. And the explanation for it was that your brain is trying to compensate for your inability to see. Your optic nerve is working, your eye is otherwise healthy, and your brain wants to continue to see. So it's making up things to compensate for those things not really being available to you, visually. So, and I thought back to that time where the ophthalmologist in Durham, said, "It's your brain," and I think he was right. I have no other explanation there's no other explanation that's been presented to me for these visualizations other than that your brain is trying to compensate for your loss of the ability to actually see things. So I'm good with that, and I'm good with the visualizations. At this point, it's almost entertainment. It's intriguing. The faces that I see are never threatening. They're never people I recognize. It's not people in my life. It's not real people. They appear to be real, but they're not people I know or have ever encountered. They're just different faces, and it's fascinating. There's no pain to it. There's no fear or anything like that. There have been other images, not so often with me, people walking. I remember seeing this person walking in front of my car. I was sitting in the parking lot pulling a rolly luggage bag like it was going into an airport. Vehicles on the road that aren't there. Things like that happen. As I said, it's more entertaining and intriguing at this point, and never frightening. There's another one that occurs quite frequently. That's kind of cool. And the way I would describe it is if you take the words off a page of a book and imagine them to be like sticks, and all the letters to be sticks, and they dropped, and some of them broke and some of them didn't, but they're all jumbled together. And I see these like clusters of jumbled letters and broken letters and stuff, and it's almost kind of fun to be able to see if I can pick out strings of letters and stuff, and they fade away after a short while, but that happens on a pretty regular basis. And then the final regular aspect of this Charles Bonnet, or what I believe to be part of the Charles Bonnets, I mentioned that what I see is light and shadow, and I also mentioned that with all these flashing things, there's like 8 out of 10 days I've got that going on. It's like when the planets align and I don't have, like I'm on a day when I don't have all this flashy stuff going on. I still can't see things, but having that clarity in combination with a time where I'm walking in the woods, the light and shadow that I see, especially at dusk, just is absolutely beautiful. Just these, they're like clouds of black and gray and white that just sort of morph and can transition as I'm walking from like complete whiteout situations to just fading clouds into complete blackout situations. And that I find just incredible beauty in. But that's all not real. It's just not what the world beyond me is actually looking like. But that's what my brain is sort of giving to me to compensate for my inability to see the trees around me, the birds, and the trail itself and stuff. And that was probably a little bit more than you were looking for, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. The Charles Bonnet syndrome thing is something that terrifies some people who are experiencing it for the first time. And I meet these people on a regular basis through my teaching, and we actually teach about Charles Bonnet syndrome, and inevitably on those class days at the end of class, people will come out with, "I'm so grateful for hearing about that because I've never said anything to anyone about it. I thought, my brain was starting to degrade, and that you've given me just a completely new perspective on what's happening to me. It's happening to other people." Charles Bonnet syndrome can really be a scary thing for some people. It was a startling thing for me when it started, but it never became something to be afraid of. But you can imagine people seeing things that aren't there for the first time, that for some people, it can have a really debilitating impact until they learn not to be afraid of it, learn what it actually is.
I'm Davian DJ Robinson, currently living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a professional dance artist and choreographer, and also a professional massage therapist by trade.
My name is Bryce Smith, and I live in Raleigh, and I work at SAS Institute. I work on the product accessibility team.
My name is Donna. I am retired. I retired from working at Duke Hospital for 42 years.
I'm Robin. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm starting a coaching business. I got certified as a life coach recently, went through that whole training program. And I was looking for what my focus is going to be, and I want it to be on people who have lost the way they functioned for some reason. And I'm calling it Be, Live, Leap, because you've got to be where you are. You've got to live the moment we're living and then jump.
I helped create software that turns charts into sound. So one of my passions is helping people who have traditionally been shut out from accessible technology, accessible careers. Right now, what we work on is helping people who primarily can't see, but also have other disabilities, to have access to kind of STEM education and careers. So think of things like science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm quite proud of professional accomplishments.
My passion really is probably more so about my faith. It is because of my faith that has kept me encouraged in my vision loss. And it continues to strengthen me and makes me very comfortable in even me living alone. And it allows me to know I'm still the exact same person. I may not be able to naturally see, but everything else works. And me not being able to see does not discourage me, because I believe I was created and am created for a divine purpose, and I'm able still to do a lot of things that I love to do.
One of the worst parts about it is that people perceive you as being not only blind, but they perceive you as being, as I said, mentally slow, that you can't hear well, that you can't do anything for yourself. It's like, oh, you poor pitiful thing. And it's just not true.
Vision loss is unique to every person and every individual, and it's not a one-size-fit-all approach. And so when you are assisting or helping or directing someone with a visual impairment or blindness, you have to approach it with a sensitivity and an awareness that you may need to change approaches because every person may need something different who is blind or vision impaired that one may not need.
I think a lot of sighted people don't understand people who are blind, people what vision loss is all about, and maybe it is fear that prompts them to sometimes look the other way.
A disability can come on anyone at any time. If you live to be old enough, you will begin to lose your vision and your hearing, and you won't be scampering around like you once did as a child. I'm just saying, the aging process, along with that comes some types of disabilities. And so enjoy being quote unquote normal as long as you can, but just know that you may not always be that way, or someone such as a parent may not always be that way. But don't feel sorry for that person and think that they can't do anything, because the best thing that you can do for that person is encourage them to really try to be the best that they can be and work with what they've got. You've may feel like you've been dealt a bad hand in life, but you just need to look at your cards and say, this is what I got, and I'm going to play it as best as I can.
Part 2, How She Sees It.
I'm Hillary, and I was born in New York to an artist. My mother was an artist and my father was a doctor. I have what's called Stargardt's disease, and it's basically a dystrophy of the retina. It's genetic, and there's two forms of it. There's a recessive, which means both parents have to carry the gene. And then there's an autosomal dominant version. What it happens is, imagine a piece of cloth, and it has moth holes through it. That's what they mean by a dystrophy. So basically, I have holes in my retina. What makes Stargardt's, what's unique to Stargardt's is it predominantly starts in the macula, which is the center part, the center. And I have basically no centers in my vision. And you use that central vision to read, to look at things, to focus. This is one of my CCTVs. CCTV stands for closed circuit television set. And it's just one form of adaptive assistive technology. And it can only be used really with people who have some usable vision, and also people who have low vision. And they come, this is sort of a dinosaur. They've gotten to be more economical in the way they're designed. This thing is so huge, I can't even fit it on my desk. But I'm going to turn it on, and I'm putting something under the screen. And what it does, I'm waiting for it to warm up. I'm going to show you another one. Here we go. So here it is. I have a picture that I put under here of, it's the card, the invitation to the event. I think different people can you can see the size of how much I have to blow this up. And I should probably show the camera how the size of the real invitation. But for me to do it, I have to blow it up this much. My grandfather's name was Blinder, which means blind person in German. And nobody really paid much attention to that, because if you have a recessive gene, it can go unnoticed for many, many generations. So apparently my mother and my father both carry this gene, and therefore I'm a product of that. My disease, fortunately, does not manifest itself until you're around your 20s. It starts earlier, but I was lucky enough to have my visual cortex developed, and I was able to read, and I had 20/20 vision, and I was able to go to school. And then when I hit college, I started really struggling with reading, but I didn't know why. And it's very interesting. My parents chose not to tell me, though they knew I had this prognosis. There was some denial, because I have a schizophrenic sister as well, and there was a lot of denial about that in the family. They didn't want to admit that somebody in the family, like somebody they loved, might have a disability that could be debilitating. I want to say that everybody who has vision loss has their own journey. No, that's one mistake a lot of people make. My personal journey is I have a condition that is slow and degenerative. So that impacts how I digested or integrated the loss. At first, I was in denial. I think one of the greatest steps I took was moving to using a cane. Because it's a symbol. It was an outward expression of a disability that I carried within me. And it was really disturbing to me. Plus, I was in that time of my life when, you're dating people and you're supposed to be sexy and all this sort of stuff. And then I have this bozo cane with a big ball at the end of it, and I'm trying to be cute, and it wasn't cute. So, that was difficult. What was also difficult is I didn't have anybody to talk to about any of this. I didn't have any camaraderie. At the time, I was told the disease I have is rare, but I'm finding out they know so much more now. The transition of losing sight and becoming disabled is very difficult. It's not easy to go through the transition. And I remember I went to Argentina, and I would wear, for tango, you wear these incredibly tight, sexy outfits, okay, and have these high heels on, okay. And I had to show up at a milonga. The women sit on one side of the room and the men sit on the other, with my cane, which has a big bozo. Where's my cane? I don't know the other side? Yeah, this is the head of a cane. Imagine walking in really high heels with this big cane. It was mortifying. And not only that, in tango, they do something called cabeceo, where men look at the women when they want to dance across the room, and they lock eyes, and they nod, and they nod. And you're supposed to stand up and come to the middle of the room and meet them. There's no talking, there's no touching, there's no, oh, will you dance with me? Now, I'm blind, so I had to put my cane on the table in front of me as a message to the world, I can't do cabeceo. And then I spoke to my friend who was with me, who was American, and said, if somebody wants to dance with me and you can tell they're interested in me, you have to be my eyes, and you have to tell me and I'll nod. You have to tap my shoulder and let me know. And then you need to just point to the cane and make sure that they either come get me or I can get there safely. It's mortifying. But you know what? I got over it. It's like, you know, you just keep getting it. And I thought, nobody would ask me to dance when I went to Argentina. I was petrified. And in the end, I had plenty of dances. I had a great time. I went back twice. I have a rare version of my diagnosis where they told me that I would never lose peripheral vision, which is typically associated with retinitis pigmentosa. But clearly that's not the case. I'm a slight percentage have more than just central vision loss. The beauty of having central vision loss is I'm a dancer and it didn't interfere with me dancing. And I still love the arts. So I ended up going into the visual arts. I got a degree in college I started out pre-med actually. Can you imagine me being your surgeon? I started out pre-med and then I dropped because I started losing vision and I knew that I was struggling, but I couldn't tell what was going on. So I moved into the visual arts. I think I defaulted into advocacy work because it could be because of my age and my generation, where I believe most of us believe we could change the world. So I stayed with that pattern of speaking out. And I believe if we don't say something and we don't do anything, nothing will change. There's a lot of inequities that still exist. A lot of decisions about the disability community are made by people who don't have disabilities, and they're doing their best, or they think they're doing their best, but they don't include us in the dialogue. There's two ways to look at my exhibit, which is going to be called As I See It, because it's as I see it as a blind person. And I have my way of seeing it, and people who are blind have their way of seeing it, and everybody sees things in their own way. Even if you do have sight, you still see things in your own way. There's two ways to look at who I am. I'm a person with a disability who happens to be an artist. That's one way of looking at it. Or I'm an artist that happens to be disabled. And I'm not using the word disability in a negative way. I do have a disability. I'm not going to cheat myself of that, because if I don't acknowledge my disability, I don't get the help I need when I need it. So I'm going to treat myself to my disability. I'm going to acknowledge it. And I want to open that. I'm trying to open up a dialogue with the public and the community, so that they may be a little bit more. I want to debunk the misconceptions of the limitations of vision loss because as I know it, because that's my personal disability and I can speak to it more clearly than other disabilities. But I'm also hoping that they will translate it into other disabilities as well. And I'm hoping that through this project, people may walk away and go, we shouldn't assume this person can't accomplish X, Y, or Z, or can't attain X, Y, or Z, or is not competent or capable.
So, if you had to say why you're making this project, I think it's probably tied to what you believe and what you're fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? If you could say it in one sentence, what is it?
One sentence?
What's that? 3 words.
3 words. I can do it in 4.
Good.
We're all the same.
Part 3.
Lost, a quintessential day in the life of a blind person. DJ is at the store buying groceries, rushing to get home on a snowy day.
All
olive oil marinara sauce, Italian seasoning, salt, black pepper, red pepper flakes. Zucchini spinach, 1 package frozen, mushrooms, bell peppers, onion, garlic, 4 cloves, fresh basil, ricotta cheese, mozzarella cheese, Parmesan cheese, 1 dozen eggs.
Hello? I'm currently at the grocery store right now. There's a snowstorm happening or supposed to happen sometime today. So I'm just here grabbing some essentials from the store. Like, yeah. Definitely, I will do that. I'll keep in touch with you. You stay warm if you go outside. So I'll chat with you later.
DJ exits the store, making patterns in the snow with his blind cane. DJ walks to the curb and waits while listening to variations of crossing signals. He crosses the street, walks up the steps towards his house, gets to the door, drops his groceries, and gets his keys. Opens the door to encounter a voice speaking at superhuman rates. A rotating flash of color fills the room. The screen turns black.
I've fallen and I can't get up. I can't get up.
The screen flashes to individuals falling, slipping, sliding, tumbling in a dance studio.
I've fallen and I can't get up. Fallen and I can't get up. I can't get up. Get up. And I can't get up.
The room transforms into an orange scene. Surreal. 2 dancers move together to the sound of Arctic seals under ice.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
The room returns to normal. DJ begins to tap dance to a percussive soundtrack.
And I can't get up. And I can't get up. Can't get up. Falling. Get up.
The scene fades to DJ in a solid white room. He uses echolocation to get his bearings. Clicking, snapping, clapping, stomping. He determines he's in a racquetball court. He encounters a racket and balls. He attempts to use the equipment, but clearly he cannot see. The feet of another dancer appear. The camera pans up to DJ and Hillary dancing with rackets in close embrace.
I didn't want to hurt the dress.
There is a close-up of DJ doing a somersault. A somersault. A somersault in slow motion.
Oh, I've fallen, but I can get up. I can get up.
Back in the dance studio, DJ does a somersault into a standing position and walks confidently to a reflection of himself in the mirror. The film ends with a final message in white text: I can.